Good morning, students. I hope you all are doing it very well. So let's start with second part of this chapter, the new kings and kingdoms. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Turkish invention. Okay, Mahmud Ghazni invention. By the end of 10th century, the Turks have risen power in Central Asia. The Turkish general had proclaimed their control over many territories. The Ghazni in Afghanistan also came under the rule of one such Turkish general known as Mahmud. Mahmud ruled from 997 to 1027 AD and invaded India 17 times and destroyed many North Indian temples which were situated at Mathura and Kannauj. He also plundered Somnath temple of Gujarat in AD 1025. He took immense wealth, jewelry, precious stones and gateway of Somnath to Ghazni. Let's talk about Turkish invention, and in Turkish invention, we'll firstly talk about Mahmud Ghazni's invention. At the end of, or sorry, by the end of 10th century, the Turks, they have risen power, or control they had control over the large area of Central Asia. The Turkish general had claimed they had taken control over many such territories situated in different parts of Central Asia. Ghazni, which is one of the Ghazni is one of the city in Afghanistan. This also came under one Turkish general who was named as Ghazni. Sorry, Mahmud. Sorry, Ghazni, which was a city in Afghanistan. It also came under the rule of one such Turkish general who was named as Mahmud. Mahmud ruled from 997 to 1027 AD, and during this period, he had invaded India or attacked India more than 17 times and destroyed many North Indian temples, which were situated in Mathura and Kannauj. He also plundered, or he has also destroyed the famous Somnath temple of Gujarat in AD 1025. He took immense wealth, jewelry, precious stone, and gateway of Somnath back with him to Ghazni, where he had his rule. Okay, let's move forward, carry forward with this. Very simple. Let's talk about effects of Ghazni's raid. Annexation of Multan. In AD 1006, Mahmud walked up to Multan, which he conquered or which he won in the battle. And due to this, Multan also became part of Mahmud's wide kingdom. Plunder and loot. What does it mean? Thousands of people were getting killed on the Mahmud of Ghazni's raid. Okay, he attacked and plundered many cities and temples which were situated at Nagarkot, Kangra, Thaneshwar, Mathura, and Kannauj. He was also known as idol breaker, as wherever he goes, he destroyed idols, buildings of that particular place. And due to this destruction, the people used to call him as idol breaker, as he break the idol or break the idol of god and goddesses. Beautified city of Ghazni. Due to these raids, and after raiding India, Mahmud used to take the wealth and other precious things back to Ghazni where he lived, and with this, he used to build many palaces, mosques, schools, and libraries in the Ghazni city. Migration of people in large number. Because of invasion of foreign powers, it opened India to migration of people. Means people came from foreign land to India as soldiers, traders, and workers. There were also many Sufi saints who came from Iran to India to preach love and devotion towards God. One of the main thing of Ghazni's raid or the Mahmud of Ghazni's ideology was he did not have any plan to set up his dynasty or rule over the India. He died in AD 1030. After after his death, the the empire of Ghazni disintegrated or fall off very quickly. Okay, let's move forward. Muhammad Ghori's invention. He was one another ruler. He was the ruler of small kingdom of Ghori. sorry, let's start it again. Mahmud Ghori's invention. He was the ruler of small kingdom of Ghor in Afghanistan. In 1173, he started to walk towards India as to capture and destruct the places. By 1191, when he reached Punjab, he was opposed by Prithviraj Chauhan, the Rajput ruler, the Rajput ruler of Delhi and Ajmer. In the first battle of Tehran in 1191 AD, Muhammad Ghori was defeated by Prithviraj Chauhan. But in 1192, he came back for the avenge of his defeat. Means in 1192, he again came back to fight with Prithviraj Chauhan and to take revenge, जिसे बोलते हैं ना बदला लेना, and to take revenge of his defeat. Due to this, Prithviraj Chauhan has organized a meeting with all Rajput chiefs to deal with this challenge. But Jaichand of Kannauj, he refused to help Prithviraj Chauhan, and during the second battle of Tehran, Prithviraj Chauhan got defeated and killed by Muhammad Ghori. In 1194, Muhammad Ghori defeated Jaichand of Kannauj at the Battle of Chandawar. Okay, it has been said that Prithviraj Chauhan has defeated Muhammad Ghori almost 17 times during this period, but always Muhammad Ghori says sorry to Prithviraj Chauhan, and Prithviraj Chauhan used to leave him. Okay, but eventually in 1192 he came back and defeated Prithviraj Chauhan. This was the story. Okay, let's move forward. Turkish invention, Muhammad Ghori's invention. Another general of Muhammad Ghori, Bakhtiyar Khilji, he had conquered Bengal and Bihar. Within short period of time, a larger part of northern India came under the rule of Muslims leaders. In 1206 AD, Muhammad Ghori was murdered at Ghazni. He was succeeded by Alauddin, who was soon replaced by another general, Qutbuddin Aibak. He was the first ruler, or he was the first person who laid the foundation of slave dynasty in India. If we talk about if we want to talk about more of Turkish invention, then there was another general of Muhammad Ghori, Bakhtiyar Khilji, who had conquered, who had won Bengal and Bihar, and during the short period, within less period of which we say within no time, a larger part of northern India was under Muslim leaders or Muslim rule. In 1206, Muhammad Ghori was murdered at Ghazni. He was succeeded by Alauddin, who was soon replaced by another general, okay, Qutbuddin Aibak, who was the first person to lay the foundation of slave dynasty in India. Let's move forward. Causes of defeat of Rajput. Why Rajput were defeated? Let's discuss this topic. There was disunity among Rajputs. Okay, means the Rajput leaders were again and again in fight with one another. The Turks were if we want to compare the military power of Turks and Rajput, then the Turks were military superior than Rajput, as the Turks were using horses with a greater skill during the war, but the Rajput were using slow moving horses and are fighting the war in very traditional way. So it maybe this was the main reason for their loss. The rulers of Rajput or the Rajput rulers didn't have any standing army, which means that they do not have any army with them. They had to depend on their feudal lords who provide army or the troops during the time of war. And this thing, feudal lords, we have studied in the part 1 of this chapter. Okay, so let's move forward. Kingdoms of South from 700 to 1200. That is medieval period. During the medieval period, there was a close contact between North and South India. We can see there was a good contact or better communication between North and South part of India. The rulers of North as well as South India both have crossed the Vindhyachal mountain range as to increase the area of their empire, or as to increase their empire, so that their empire could be large. Okay. Next point, the teaching of Shankaracharya and other saints was started to spread all over the Indian landmass. It means that the teachings or the sayings of Guru Shankaracharya and other holy saints who used to give teachings to people, their teachings were started to spread all over India during this period. In 9th century or in early 9th century, Shankaracharya has Guru Shankaracharya has chosen four places in India. They were Badrinath in north, Sringeri in south, Dwarka in west, and Puri in the east. He has selected these four places as the center of teachings. And at these places, Guru Shankaracharya had set up mat or monastery, so that if people want to come, they can come here and learn the teachings. Okay. South India, during this period, the South India has seen the rise of many kingdoms, and some of the kingdoms were Palwas and the Cholas, which we will discuss in this chapter forward. Okay, let's move forward. Let's start with Pallavas of Kanchi. The Pallava ruler Mahendravarman ruled from 600 AD to 630 AD. The Pallavas were continuing conflict with Chalukyas, Pandyas, Cheras, and Cholas. The Pallava ruler, or the Mahendravarman, who was the Pallava dynasty ruler, he ruled from 600 AD to 630 AD. The Pallavas were continue in conflict or continue in war with Chalukyas, Pandyas, Cheras, and the Cholas. Okay, Mahendravarman, who was one of the Pallavas ruler, he was succeeded by Narsimha Varman. Okay, this is the dynasty which we are talking about. Mahendravarman, then Narsimha Varman. Okay, under Pallavas, during the rule of Pallavas, the Kanchi city had become a great center of Brahmical as well as Buddhist learning. It means that there was Buddhist as well as Brahmical teaching of Kanchi was very famous, and due to these teachings, Kanchi city has become famous. Okay, the Pallava king were patron of art and architecture. Means the Pallavas rulers or the kings, they were the great patron or the great follower, and they admire a lot the art and architecture. For example, the Shore temple of Mahabalipuram and the Kailasnath temple of Kanchi, these are the best example to believe that Pallava's king were great patron of architecture. The Cholas defeated Pallavas and became the dominant power in south. And after some time, the Cholas defeated the Pallava rulers, and the Cholas had become the dominant or the superior power in the south of India. Okay, let's move forward. The Cholas of Tanjavur from 846 AD to 1279 AD. They were originally the chieftains who were the subordinates of Pallava king. Basically, the Cholas were the subordinate of Pallava king, and they had exercised their power on the east coast of Tamil Nadu. Okay, one of their leaders, means here we are talking about the Chola's leader. One of their leader, Vijayalaya, okay, who ruled from 846 to 871 AD. He had declared independence from Pallavas in 846 AD, and he has established his rule over east coast with Tanjavur or Tanjore as their capital city. Okay, his grandson, okay, Parantaka I, he ruled from 48 years, means from 907 to 955 AD. He defeated the Pandyas of Madurai and captured their kingdom. And due to this, he had took the title of Madurai Kondavan. which means the conqueror of Madurai. He had also defeated the ruler of Sri Lanka, so that by this we can say that the Cholas had their kingdom or rule till Sri Lanka. Okay, so let's move forward. Very simple. Raja Raja 1, 985 to 1014 AD. The Chola regained their glory under Raja Raja 1. He made himself the overlord of the whole of southern India, Sri Lanka, and other lands. If we talk about the regaining of glory of the Cholas, then the Cholas regained their power under the leadership of Raja Raja 1. He had made himself the lord, or he had made himself the king for the whole of southern India, Sri Lanka, and other islands. The whole Chola territory was known as Chola Mandalam, yeah, Chola Mandala. He was also a great administrator and patron or the follower of art and architecture. Raja Raja I was a great patron of art and architecture and also a great leader, king, or administrator. He had a strong navy and gained. He had very strong naval army, and due to this, he had gained control over Iceland like Lakshadweep and Maldives. He was also a great leader. Oh, sorry, he was also a great builder, as he has constructed Brihadeshwara temple of Lord Shiva in Tanjore. The trade flourished in many islands during this period. The coast of Kerala, Maldives, Sri Lanka became rich due to naval trade ship. Textiles, spices, and precious stones were the main items which were exported to west of Asia. Okay, let's move forward. Very simple, very interesting. Let's talk about Rajendra Chola, 1014 to 1044 AD. He was succeeded by his son Rajendra I. He raided the Ganga Valley, Rajendra Chola. He raided or he attacked at the Ganga Valley and defeated the Pala king of Bengal. And after getting victory on the Ganga Valley, he took the title of Gangai Konda Chola, means who is the conqueror of Ganga, and he has built his new capital, which was named as Gangai Konda Cholapuram. Okay, Rajendra Chola was succeeded by his son Rajendra I. He raided at Ganga Valley and they defeated the Pala king of Bengal. And after winning the Ganga Valley, he took the title of Gangai Koda Chola, which means the conqueror of Ganga. And he has built his new capital, which was named as Gangai Konda Cholapuram. Okay, new capital at Ganga Valley. The conquered, they had conquered the whole of Sri Lanka. Means the Rajendra Chola has conquered the whole of Sri Lanka area. It was made a province of Chola Empire. So after winning the Sri Lanka, that place was made a province of Chola Empire and was named at that time as Mumadi Chola Mandalam. Means Rajendra Chola has conquered all of Sri Lanka. He had made the province. He has made that area the province of Chola Empire and named that area as Mumadi Chola Mandalam. He has also built lake during his rule. Rajendra Chola has made many lakes and canals so that the farmer were always have water. Means the farmers would always have water for irrigation purpose on their fields. The trade with Southeast Asia, means the export or the trading with Southeast Asia, it had made the Chola Empire very prosperous and very growthful. Okay, let's move forward with the next topic. Let's talk about the art and architecture during the Cholas period. The Cholas were the great patron of art and architecture, as we all know, and we the same we had studied in the previous slide. The cities of Tanjore and Gangai Konda Cholapuram have described and praised by writers of the period. As we all know, the rulers of the ancient time, they most of them were great patron or great follower of art and architecture. The cities of Tanjore and Gangai Konda Cholapuram was the best example of the of this, and the both cities have been praised by the writers of that period. Means the writers during that period, they have praised, or they have, what we say, that they have written many good things regarding the architecture of Tanjore and Gangaikonda Cholapuram. They were great temple builders. Here, the Cholas were the great temple builders. Their, the example of the great temple buildings are the famous Brihadareshwara temple of Lord Shiva in Tanjore, which was built in 11th century by Raja Raja I of Chola dynasty. It is dedicated to Lord Shiva. Most of the temples are in Dravidian style. Most of the temple which you will see in, particularly in South India, they were in Dravidian style. Means most of the temple which you see in South India will look as same from outside. Okay, they also encourage the craftsmen. Means the Chola rulers, different rulers, they have encouraged many craftsmen to make images of God, goddess, and in both stone and metal. And if they want to make idols in metals, then bronze was preferred in making of images or idols of gods and goddesses. The most famous bronze image of the period of Chola dynasty was the Nataraja, or the dancing Shiva. Okay, so let's move forward. The next topic is importance of temple. The temples were not merely a place of worship. It means, let's talk about the importance of temple during the Chola dynasty. The temples was not only the place to worship the god. There were many activities which took place inside the temple complex, and the priest or the saints, they also taught Sanskrit in that temple only. The temple courtyard means the area inside the temple boundary. It had become the place of meeting of people, so that they could discuss different important topics. There were many festivals and fairs. Fairs means mela. There were also many festivals and fairs which were being celebrated inside the temple. Bharatnatyam, Bharatnatyam, which is a dance form of South India, it was originated in the temple. The temples were maintained through. If we talk about the maintenance, how the temple was being maintained, what were the sources of fund? So from where the temples were maintained. So the temples were maintained through donation from rulers and the rich people of that area. Okay, the South Indian temples were great example of Dravidian style architecture. These temples are carved from massive rocks. If we talk about the South Indian temples, what was the style of the architecture? Then the South Indian temple was made in the Dravidian style of architecture, as in this style, the temple was carved out, or the building of the temple was carved out from a big or massive pieces of rocks. These temples have gateways which were known as gopurams. Temples in South India have gateways, or the gate from where any person can enter into the temple, and these gates were known as gopurams. Okay, let's move forward. The Chola government, how was the administration of the Chola government? The system was highly organized and efficient. The king was the head of the central government and acted upon the advice of his council of ministers in government. The system of administration of Chola government was highly systematic and very efficient, as the king was the head of the central government. Means the king was the head of the central government, and he acted upon the advice of the various ministers who was in council regarding different government affairs. The Chola king gave some rich landowners title like Muven, the Velar, and Ariyar, which means one who served the three royal houses of Cholas, Cheras, and Pandya. The Chola government, or the Chola king, they have given the rich landowners, means those who have many land with them. The Chola king has given titles to them like Muven, the Velar, and Ariyar. It means that these has served all the three dynasties of royal houses of the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas. They divided empire into six provinces called Mandalam. The Chola government had divided their empires into six provinces, which was known as Mandalam. Each Mandalam was divided into a district. Each district has certain number of villages, and these villages were the smallest unit of Chola administration. The Chola government, they had divided their province into Mandalam. Each Mandalam was having some districts. Each district was having some villages, and the villages was the smallest unit of administration of Chola kingdom. Okay, or the Chola's administration. The administration in the village was carried out by three types of assemblies. If we talk about the how the administration system of villages was carried out, it was carried out by three assemblies. The Ur was the assembly of common villages. It means that Ur, the common villagers were in the assembly of the Ur, the Sabha of learned Brahmins, and the Nagram of the assembly of traders, merchants, and artisans. Means in Ur there was common villager, in Sabha there was learned Brahmins, and in Nagram it was the assembly or the group of trader, merchants, and artisans. Let's move forward. So let's continue with the topic Chola government and what were the administrators. The Chola had a powerful army of soldiers, archers, horsemen, and elephant corps, and also they had powerful naval fleet or the naval army. The navy was the most powerful wing of the army. Out of all, the navy was the most powerful fleet of army, which was used to keep control, or which were dedicated for the control over the island and the maintenance of commercial relation with distant land via sea. If we talk about the army system of the Chola government, then they had a very powerful army of foot soldiers, archers, that bow and arrow, horsemen, elephant corps, and the naval army. Naval was the most powerful wing of all the army, which was dedicatedly used for the control over the island and maintaining the commercial relation with distant land via sea route. Okay, the Brahmins and the merchants were the most respected. The Brahmins and the merchants, they were the most respectable person or the section of the Chola society. The traders and artisans enjoyed great esteem in the society. It means that the traders and the artist person, they also enjoyed the great respect in the Chola society. Women were given freedom and imparted with education in different branches of learning, especially in fine arts. If we talk about the conditions of women in the Chola society or the Chola kingdom, they were given full freedom and they were imparted with the best education, especially in the branches of learning of fine arts. Okay, the laborers and the peasants formed the working class, but they were poor. The laborers who work and the peasants, they form the working class or the people who actually works, but they were still very poor. The Shudras were treated as untouchable. The Shudra, they were the class of people who in Chola dynasty was treated as untouchable, means the person who are meant not to be touched by any other person. Okay, the people follow Hinduism and worship Hindu god. Buddhism and Jainism also existed along Hinduism. The Alvaras popularized the devotional song of Vaishnavism, while the Nayanars, they sang hymns in the praise of Shiva. If we talk about the religion, the Hinduism was the most popular religion during Chola dynasty, in which the Hindu god were being worshipped. There were Buddhism and Jainism also existed along with Hinduism. The Alvaras, they popularized devotional song of Vaishnavism, while Nayanaras, they sang the hymns or the songs which in the praise of Lord Shiva. The Lingayat was the most popular of the religious sects. If we talk about the most popular religious sects or the religious branch, the Lingayat was one of them. They used to worship the Shiva Linga. Okay, so now let's move forward. Literature under Cholas. Sanskrit and Tamil became the chief medium of expression, or the if we talk about the medium of language, the Sanskrit and Tamil was the chief medium of expression of people's feelings. There were many literature which were written in different languages like Tamil, Telugu, and Kannada. Okay, means many books, writings, literatures were created and written in Tamil, Telugu, and Kannada language. Many literature and religious works from Sanskrit were translated into these languages, and they become very popular among the people. The Ramayana of Kambam in Tamil is one such example. There were many literatures in Sanskrit which were written in local languages like Tamil, Telugu, and Kannada, which later became popular among the people of South India. The Ramayana of Kambam in Tamil means the Ramayana which was written in Tamil by Kambam was one such example of the religious work in Sanskrit which was translated into Tamil, Telugu, Kannada language, which was translated in Tamil language, and then this literature became very popular. The Lingayat teachers preached in Kannada. The teachers of Lingayat, or the people who teach Lingayat, they teach in Kannada language. Okay, let's move forward. Agrarian expansion in Tamil Nadu. The Cholas ruled for more than 4 centuries. The Cholas had ruled around for 400 years from 9th to 12th century over those areas which are now included in modern Tamil Nadu. They paid a great attention on promotion of agriculture in their state. Means they were very concentrated to promote the agriculture during their time in their state, which in turn resulted in much agrarian expansion, means more agriculture expansion in Tamil Nadu. They paid attention to irrigation, means that facility in which water is used to give in agricultural land. The Cholas dynasty paid attention on irrigation, in which river Kaveri was used, means the water of river Kaveri was especially used for irrigation purpose in Cholas dynasty in areas where it was not possible to take river water, means there were also some areas where river water cannot reach. There in Chola dynasty there were many tanks or various tanks was built for this special purpose. Like if we say in other words, river Kaveri was used for the irrigational purpose during the Chola dynasty, and there was some area where river water cannot reach. For for that purpose, there were various tanks made for irrigation, so that there is no scarcity of water for irrigation or agriculture purpose. The Cholas provided tank committee which looked after the distribution of water in fields. Means for better result, the Cholas has provided or created a tank committee or a group of persons who were looking after the distribution of water in the fields. Means there was some group of people which were appointed by the Cholas king who looked after the how means like how the water is being distributed or water is reaching or not to various agricultural land for irrigation purpose. The grant of rent-free lands to Brahmins, which is also known as Brahmadaya, means Brahmadaya is a grant of free land which were given to Brahmins by the kings. This was in practice, means giving land to Brahmins as Brahmadaya was in practice by the king of Chola dynasty. The Brahman played an important role in agrarian expansion in Tamil Nadu, and the Brahmans they had played a very great role, a very big role in the agrarian expansion in Tamil Nadu. Let's move forward. So here comes the last topic of this chapter, the Chola's inscription. The Chola ruler achievements are recorded on stone and copper. Means the achievement or the various achievement of the Chola king or the Chola dynasty is being recorded on various stones and copper plate. These inscriptions have been found in many places like Tanjore, Thiruvangalanadu, Trichy, etc. And these inscriptions, where achievements of Chola dynasty kings are recorded, these inscriptions are found on many archaeological sites of Tanjore, Thiruvangalanadu, Trichy, etc. These inscriptions provide various details of military campaigns launched by the Cholas. In these inscriptions, there were also various military campaigns or the military activities which were launched or performed by Cholas. This was also written in this inscription. The inscription also tells the way in which Gram Sabha were organized or worked. In this inscription, which was written on copper or stone and stone plates, this inscription also tells us that how was the working of Gram Sabha being organized under Chola dynasty. Means how Gram Sabha was working in Chola dynasty. The Chola inscription are in Tamil and Sanskrit. The language in which Chola inscriptions are written are mainly in Tamil and Sanskrit. So here comes the end of this chapter, New Kings and Kingdoms, part 2. I hope you had understood it. Read it again and again so that you won't forget any part of this chapter. Till then, take care. See you soon.